I want to welcome to the program a great friend of the Ruthless Variety program. You've heard from her many times. Emily Seidel from AFP. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. And I'm glad we're having this conversation right now because, Congress isn't here. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean the work stops. And that's what I love about AFP.
Yes, that is right. We just held 60 events in 30 states across the country on tax day.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah. Work does not stop.
Yeah, it's perfect timing, and we knew that after the election and the millions of doors you hit and the millions of phone contacts you made, we knew that it didn't stop on Election Day when President Trump won. We knew you would continue into the new year, but 60 events timed for tax day. You can't get better timing than that.
It was a lot of fun too.
All right, so you're here to talk about the reconciliation bill. This is a big deal.
Yes.
A really, really big deal.
Yes.
This is like how Donald Trump makes his agenda that he campaigned on in the election season and that elected him, how he actually makes that promise to the American people. So lay it out for us.
Yeah, well, I think it's make or break for the Republicans in Washington, D.C., honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the news this morning that the House's working title for this bill is Renewing the American Dream Act, which I love because at AFP we've been out there talking about reigniting the American dream and unleashing freedom and opportunity for people so that they can pursue their American dream. And we made extending the 2017 Trump tax cuts our number one priority as an organization because we felt like it was the most important thing to do to give people a shot at the American dream. Mm-hmm. And so I loved the title of the House bill. I hope that they keep it and it moves from being a working title to the actual title because it really is what I think the number one priority of Congress needs to be as well.
So you had 60 events on tax day. I got to imagine a lot of people agreed with what you're saying.
Yes. So over 90% of Americans want to keep their current tax rates. This is a bipartisan issue, 90% of Americans. And if you look at the opportunity, in 2024, voters sent a Republican trifecta to Washington, D.C. to solve big problems in our country, and number one on that list was the economy. 4 years of the Biden failed economic agenda caused real harm. And so they're looking for this Congress and this administration to start chipping away at that problem and put some better solutions in place. A1A is not making the situation worse by allowing the tax rates to go back up, which is what would happen if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is not extended at some point this year.
Unthinkable.
Yeah,
right.
And it's a problem that doesn't get solved overnight. We saw that with TCGA back in 2017. It takes a while for the American people to see the value of the good work that's done in a tax cut that impacts, every bracket for the American people. I saw a truth that Donald Trump put out, which I think illuminates this issue in the political context. Can we put that up? So Trump wrote, Newt is quite possibly right on this. George Bush said, read my lips, no new taxes, then proceeded to give a rather small tax increase and was obliterated. While I love the idea of a small tax increase, the Democrats would probably use it against us. And we would be, like Bush, helpless to do anything about it. I love this because he gets the political ramifications of this and why it's important to deliver that certainty in those low tax rates to the American people ahead of the midterms.
Yeah. Look, I've been talking about this as first, we've got to seize the opportunity to do as much good as possible on this bill. There's a big upside, but there are also three potential outcomes that are significant downsides.
Okay.
The first one is obvious, right? No bill at all. If Congress somehow fails to get this done, I think there's a low likelihood of that, but it's got to be on the table. You can't just assume it'll get done. But the other two are really where that sort of a statement comes into play. You could also have a bad bill. And I mean that from a policy perspective and also a political perspective. Or you could have a late bill. And Speaker Johnson was just at our office down on Capitol Hill. We call it the Freedom Embassy.
I love it. It's a beautiful building.
It's a great spot. He was just down there a couple of weeks ago where he warned about the dangers of a late bill. And he looked back at the 2017 passage of the original tax cuts and said, they came on the heels of the disaster of the failure of repeal and replace. And then there was a lot of infighting amongst Republicans, what should be in or out of the tax bill. So by the time it passed, it was too late in the cycle for Americans to really understand the value of what had just happened. They didn't get to see the economic impacts before they started to make decisions about who they were going to vote for in the 2018 elections. And what happened? House Republicans lost 41 seats. I think the speaker is smart to be harping on the dangers of a late bill because he doesn't have have that big of a margin to be able to lose those.
But he does have a margin. Republicans are not only in charge of the White House, but in charge of both houses of Congress. And when Republicans are in charge, they do what? They do not raise taxes on people. If Democrats were in charge, that's what Democrats would be pushing to do. So I'm not really sure where this idea that we should raise taxes on people is coming from, but it seems to me that before we start talking about taking more money away from people that they earn, we should talk about doing things like changing some of those special provisions that Biden wrote during his 4 years in that Inflation Reduction Act, so-called.
Yeah.
Well, and so this speaks to the ideas that could spark the second of the bad outcomes, which is the bad bill outcome. So if there are new lines of revenue, or if they do choose to allow some people's taxes to go back up, they're going to face a lot of backlash from those constituencies, the business community. You're not going to see all of the economic benefits that you could see from a full extension of the entirety of the tax reform from 2017. But there are other ways that this could be a bad bill. You could have bad pay-fors. You could have poison pills that start to cleave off significant members of the conference. We see this stuff all of the time in the legislative fights. We don't have the luxury of dilly-dallying around those fights right now. We've got to just stay focused on getting the most pro-growth tax package possible in this reconciliation bill and get it done quickly so that the American people can feel the certainty to know that their taxes are not going to go up. And so that business owners across the country, especially small business owners, know that they can rely on the rates that they have today. As a grassroots organization, one of the privileges that we have is to be able to hear from thousands of people across the country every day. And they share incredible stories of what the 2017 tax bill enabled them to do. Small business owners in particular, it doesn't really matter who you talk to in which industry, whether it's a jeweler or a grocer, whatever. They all have the same story. They either did one or both of the following things. They invested in their people through higher wages or bonuses. We just had a small business owner at an event the other week share that in 2017, after the bill passed, he gave every single one of his employees a $6,000 bonus. So investing in their people or investing in growing their business, adding new locations, adding better equipment, whatever it is.
The full expensing, all that sort of stuff.
Having that kind of certainty to continue that kind of investment in our people and in our economy is critical at this moment as we're trying to recover from 4 years under Biden.
Yeah, so I have one question on that third component, late bill. Bill that comes too late. How do we stop that from happening?
Well, you've got to look at the timeline that we face over the next couple of months and have a sense of urgency about it. There's a lot happening in Washington, D.C. right now, and you got to cut through the noise and just focus on getting this done. And so if you look at, the speaker, I think, as we mentioned, has been laying out a very aggressive timeline this whole year on this package. Right now, he's saying he'd like to get it to the president's desk by Memorial Day. I think most people assume that's a tad optimistic. But I like laying it out, right? Let's push as fast as possible. When Congress comes back next week, they're going to have, I think, 4 weeks to try to push to get that done as quickly as possible. After that, you've got another 3 weeks of legislative session or so until you get to the 4th of July recess. I think that is a probably more realistic and aggressive timeline still to try to get it done. If you get past the 4th of July, you have another 3 weeks or so until the August recess. And that's where I see sort of the final urgent push to get this done, because if Congress goes home for the August recess without this reconciliation package getting done, then I think we are getting into the territory when this bill is going to be too late to achieve what it needs to achieve heading towards the midterms.
But then we get to yell at them at town halls.
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, they'll come back motivated to get it done.
But the possibility is that people do more than just yell at them at town halls. If they don't get something done, I mean, Republicans will lose the majority in the House.
Oh,
at a
100%.
minimum.
So, I mean, we shared the numbers earlier about what happened in 2018. Republicans lost 41 seats. The party of the president loses on average 28 seats in a midterm election. And so Republicans in the House in particular have a huge task in front of them to buck the historic norm. And the only way that they're going to do that is by passing a popular bill soon enough that people can start to act on it, that drive that consumer confidence, drive that business investment, and have that economy roaring back so that people head into the midterms with realizing that the people that they sent to Washington in the last election got the job done. That's what really matters.
Is there anything else you think we did wrong after 2017 with that tax cut? And I know, Speaker Johnson would say, too late and everything like that. Didn't break through to the American people. From a strategy perspective, or just as someone who talks to so many activists across the country, what else do we need to do in selling this? Let's say we get it to the finish line. What else do we got to do to make sure people know in the midterms, that this majority actually delivered on what they asked?
Well, I think first of all, Republicans in general don't always do the greatest job of messaging.
Yeah.
And so we've got to get better at doing that and connecting with people. And I think that's where the real stories of the impact of this type of legislation really resonates. The other side does a good job of pulling out one person and using them as an example for the argument in the opposite direction. We have a ton of amazing stories of what freedom and opportunity give people in terms of a path to prosperity. And so we just need to tell those stories better. We give these sort of intellectual arguments that don't cut through the noise and really resonate with the majority of Americans. And so I think we need to do better at talking about the benefits of the bill. And then we need people to run on the benefits of the bill and focus on these issues. And then the third thing I would say is don't give up the fight. Not everything is going to be solved by one bill. We've had 4 years of really bad policy coming out of Washington, D.C. And so this is part of the benefit of moving this bill quickly. It'll be a springboard for momentum for a ton of other legislative packages in Washington, whether it's more rescissions packages like the one that's coming up in about 2 weeks, or work on the appropriations bills, another reconciliation package. There's so much more that we can do, and so getting this done quickly allows us to build momentum for those other things. The inverse is also true. If it drags out, if there's a lot of infighting, you're going to lose a ton of that momentum, and then there's really not going to be as much on the resumes of these members heading into the midterms that they can crow about.
Yeah, it's hard. Tax reform is hard.
It is hard.
I mean, I don't, for especially like our younger listeners, and whatnot. We had like the Bush tax cuts. I think that was 01 or whatever, and then like 03, and then before that, you'd have to look back to like Ronald Reagan for serious tax reform. And Donald Trump has the opportunity to do it twice. That's pretty incredible.
It is incredible.
It's important, I think, for people to take a step back and realize like that's some big boy stuff right there.
Yeah. And there's a ton of enthusiasm for it in the grassroots too. So, I mean, you don't get people organizing 60 events on one day across the country without having people behind the president on this.
Yeah, because they know that these opportunities do not come around every day, and you have to capitalize on them when they're available. Right. You can't be like Democrats and raise people's taxes, because that's if they win again, that's what they're going to try to do. So if we want to just like send our economy into the stratosphere, which is possible with something like you're talking about, we have to act now.
Yeah, so how do people get involved?
Well, you can always go to americansforprosperity.org. That's our main website, and you can click to sign up there. You can also go to afpvolunteer.com and get right into the mix.
Yes, volunteer, get involved, write your congressman, call them, make sure we get this done. Emily Seidel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You know, they're always doing so much all around